Welcome. So today is Tuesday. It's our Move into Stillness meeting, and I want to start by sharing with you a little bit about my intention. So my intention is to share with you a direct process by which we can slow down and begin to open up to discover what it is that's here that we otherwise overlook. And the value of this is as much as we're willing to receive. Specifically, this process is valuable because it will help with greater ease in movement, a greater ease in being in the body. And so that makes everything easier. And it provides a, let's say, a gateway through which we can enter a deeper rest. Because as you know, if we're so supremely uncomfortable in the body, it makes it very difficult to inquire at a deeper level. So the first thing that we're going to start with today is what I would consider to be the primal movement, and that is the movement of breath. So this is a movement that is happening for everybody all day long and all night long. And just because it's automatic doesn't mean, however, that it's optimal by any means. And in fact, because it's happening all the time, it's really where we, in a sense, should be starting all the time, because with our inquiry, because if this is happening in an, let's say, an unhelpful way, then it's going to produce agitation in all phases of the experience. So even though it seems maybe to the mind to be trivial, or maybe the mind we think, oh, I've done this before, or I know everything about breathing, or whatever we may think, or this is boring. Actually, if we're willing to really give ourselves fully to investigation of the breath and to the process of the breath and the direct experience of the breath, then many things will open up. So you can do this seated, or you can do it lying down. You could do it from any position. So you could be reclining, you could be seated upright, you could be on your back, you could be on your side. But if it's reasonably comfortable for you to do so, then I will suggest that you do it seated. But if you find that too strenuous, then lie down. And here our investigation is about many things, but among them to discover the habits of violence that are so ingrained that they're unconscious and we don't even recognize them. They go unnoticed by us. They're so normalized. We're enacting this violence all the time, so we don't notice it. Everybody else is doing it, so nobody calls anybody else out on it. And you may not even at first, because it's so normalized, you may not even, when you first start to catch glimpses of it, you may even trivialize it. You may think, oh yeah, maybe that's something, but who cares? It's not really anything to be concerned about. But the more that you allow yourself to just notice it and not, not take it personally. It's not something about you, shame on you for this. This is an inherited tendency. But to notice it allows for the light to shine on it. And the more the light shines on it, the more it dissolves. It's maybe a little cliche, but it's true nonetheless that where the light is, the darkness cannot remain. So just by shining the light of awareness, then whatever is there in ignorance can't stand any longer. And what we find as we are willing to see it is that this violence is painful. And that's why it won't stand once we see it enough. It requires thorough seeing. So there can be a part of the process we can perceive as a little bit uncomfortable, which may or may not happen for you, but if it does, then don't dismay. It sometimes can happen that there's some sense of discomfort, but as you persist in just being willing to see it, it will dissolve because, as I say, the discovery is that it's painful and it's not essential. So it's something that we've been trained to do, we're conditioned to do. And as we start to discover it, that conditioning dissolves and we are liberated from that. So we're starting from either seated or lying down or whatever posture works for you in order just to explore the breath, which, as I've said, is the primal movement, because that's the first movement. It's the movement that we're always doing from the moment we were born. And as we'll discover, this movement is moving the whole body. It is not only moving the lungs, obviously, but it's moving everything. It moves the entire lymphatic system is moved by the breath. The digestive system is aided by the breath. Everything in the body is participating in the breath from head to toe, inside and outside. So start from this posture that you've chosen and have an intention that this is a posture that you're going to inhabit with confidence and stability and surrender for the next, let's say, at least 10 or 15 minutes. It's just so you can kind of have an expectation of what's involved, and that way you can plan appropriately. So just gauge, is this something that you're going to be able to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes, just to be here in this position? Can you rest here? Can you be still here? And so just check in, maybe close the eyes and notice, is there a strain involved? Is there a struggle just to be here? Sometimes that can be a little bit shocking to discover, just to be here, just to be sitting, or even sometimes just to be lying down involves a great deal of strain and effort. It's unconscious until we just slow down and notice. So close the eyes if that helps, and just notice. Can you rest here confidently for 10 or 15 minutes without constant adjustment? And if not, then notice if there's a tendency toward self-inflicted violence, this voice in the back of the mind that's saying, you have to just stay here. You have to suck it up and try harder because it's better. You have to endure it. And if you notice that, then just ask yourself why. Why is that necessary? And give yourself permission just to surrender a little bit. So if it's totally obvious that this posture is just too strenuous, then you can change the posture. But if you're a little bit on the edge, you're not quite sure, then just start to notice what I call the low-hanging fruit. So see, is there anything that you can become aware of where there's a gripping that you can just surrender. So, for example, you might notice that you're clenching the jaw, or that the forehead is tense. You might notice the back of the head is tense. You might notice your hands and wrists are even tense. So just notice that you can start to release those. Maybe you notice the shoulders are tense and you can release that. Now you might notice that you can't, and that's okay too. So here we're not aiming for perfection. This is the low-hanging fruit. So it's just whatever you can release and soften and surrender, and whatever you can't, you just accept that that's just what's happening now. So we have to be willing to accept things in order to be able to continue with the inquiry. So it's just part of the process. You might notice that the chest is tight. You might notice that the abdomen is very tight. You might notice that your thighs are tense. Maybe the feet even are tense. So all of these things you can just scan and just gently release. And again, whatever you cannot, then you just accept that. And see if maybe that allows for you to surrender more to this posture, if that gives you greater access to the support and stability that's here. And if so, wonderful. And if not, then you just have to be honest and notice, are you straining too much? And can you give yourself a rest? Can you be gentle and kind to yourself? So now notice the breath. So we just start by noticing the breath. The breath is happening. Maybe you've been holding the breath, but held breath punctuated by breathing. And we start just by noticing the breath, and you notice if there's any tendency to judge. So sometimes we have that tendency to judge. Oh, I'm not doing it right. Oh, I can't believe that I'm such a bad breather. Shame on me for holding my breath. I thought I knew better. Or frustration. Why can't I just let go and breathe in a relaxed way? So you just notice whatever is happening, and then you notice if there's any judgment about the noticing. And there too, it's just to notice there's the violence. It's not personal. You didn't choose that consciously. It just is part of the conditioning. But by being aware of it in this open, non-judgmental way, not taking it personally, you just see it. There it is. So then you can be lighter about it. You can give yourself a rest. You don't have to take it so seriously. And then maybe you find that opens up a little bit. Maybe the breathing becomes a little bit, just the tiniest little bit freer. So notice now that the breath consists of, it's a continuous process, but to be able to speak of it, we can say there are these 4 phases of the breath. You've heard me talk about them, I'm sure. So we have the inhalation. We have the transition between inhalation and exhalation. Then we have the exhalation, and then the transition between the exhalation and the inhalation. So now just allow yourself to continue to be aware of the breath, and we're not trying to control it. We're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to do anything with it other than just be aware, but be aware of it now with awareness of these 4 phases. So that as you're inhaling, you notice that you're inhaling, and then you notice that there's a transition between inhalation and exhalation. And then you notice as you're exhaling that you're exhaling. And then you notice that there's a transition between exhaling and inhaling, and round it goes. So just notice that now, just for a few rounds, just notice the breath. So now, as you're continuing to notice the breath and you're noticing these phases of the breath, just start to notice, does the breath seem smooth and continuous, or does it seem disconnected? Or do you notice spasms, hesitation, restriction? So just notice, and if you really are telling the truth, no matter how good of a breather you are, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how much you've practiced, there will be things to notice. There will be hesitations and spasms and restriction. So just notice it. It's not a judgment again. Okay. There's nobody here who's judging you. It's not a test. There's no prize to be won for being the best breather. So this is about self-honesty. So noticing and then being honest about it and seeing that I'm free to be honest when I'm not taking it personally, when I'm not making the judgments or holding tightly to the judgments. I just allow it all, see it all, I'm witnessing it. I notice, yes, there's a little hesitation. Yes, there's a spasm. So just notice that and just start to notice where those little points of non-smoothness are, non-pleasure. And no matter how big or how small, they may be very big or they may be very small, but just notice them and then start to notice what else is there. So you'll start to see, as you pay attention, that where there's a spasm or a hesitation or a restriction, or whatever else you may notice, that there's other qualities of experience, other aspects of experience that go along with that. So you might notice how you feel, what emotions are present. Maybe you notice certain kinds of thoughts that appear along with those spasms or hesitation. And if you just allow yourself, just be gentle and as restful as possible, and just in this open way, just notice and see with curiosity what is there. So you might notice that if you allow yourself, it's kind of like you have this superpower where you can, it's like you're kind of zooming in on it. And so it expands before you and it slows down a little bit, and you can start to see all of these details and subtleties that you wouldn't normally notice, but here with this awareness and this process, you can just see them. And they may seem somewhat unclear at first, but just keep being patient with them and you'll see each time it occurs, there it is, and you'll start to get a sense of it. And it's likely very familiar because this is something that's happening most of the time, you see. So it's very familiar. It's kind of at the core, actually, of your sense of yourself, is these feelings, emotions, thoughts, whatever it may be. It may be, you may consider it to be frustration or numbness or discouragement or anger or sadness or unworthiness or any number of things. Well, I suppose it could also be a kind of, it could be on the flip side, it could be pride, it could be any number of things, but you just see, as you just allow yourself to just be witness to it, you'll notice there it is. So now you can start to be curious about how is this experience coming about? So this breath is occurring physically, right? So there's a mechanical process by which the breath is occurring. There are movements taking place. And we all have conditioned, those movements are conditioned. We have a way that we have learned how to breathe. It's not, almost certainly it's not the most efficient, but it's the way that you have learned to breathe. And so it's just what's familiar to you. So now we're becoming aware of that by shining this light of awareness and feeling into it. You're becoming aware of what that process is. Now, you may not be able to describe exactly what muscles are used in the sequence and so forth, but you're feeling into it intuitively. And you know if it feels free and satisfying or if it feels less than free and satisfying. So here, what we're exploring is how to come to rest in and surrender into what is free and satisfying. So the premise here is that there is a natural intelligence, and it's the supreme intelligence of nature that is functioning, and that it has the capacity, the potential, if we allow it, to express in a free, full, and satisfying way. But there are learned habits that interfere with that. So rather than this being about you have to learn the right way and you have to practice the right way and you have to strengthen the right way and you've got to, do that whole thing. Here we're taking a very different approach, which is to see what are the habits. So we start from the premise that this supreme intelligence of nature is already here, already that which shines the sun and moves the planets, and which is the power of gravity, all of that which grows the plants, and all of that is operating here in and through and as each of us. And that it has everything that's necessary in order to express fully, freely, and satisfyingly. But that there's just some conditioning that's present. And we can, through this power of awareness, we can discover that and we can surrender that. And then what expresses more and more is this full, free, and satisfying underlying reality. So start to notice now as you're just feeling into the breath. So again, just start to notice the breath and the phases of the breath, and notice start to play with it a little bit. So you start to see how there's a habit, there's a mechanical conditioned habit. This is the way to breathe. And how do you know that's the way to breathe? Because that's just the way you do it. So start to play with that a little bit. You notice where these transitions are. So if you start to feel this, again, the 4 phases of the breath, you start to notice that this transition between inhalation and exhalation, where do you feel that? And what is the nature of that feeling? Does it feel restricted? Then perhaps you start to notice, what can you soften? Where is the restriction? And can you gently soften that? Or maybe you start to notice it feels a little bit excessive, like maybe it's just a little overinflated. So then just start to play with, what if you just don't inhale quite as much? See, there's no one rule for everybody, but you can start to play by tuning into the experience. And now, as it's opening up in awareness, because you're slowing down, because you're shining that light of awareness, all kinds of richness opens up to you. It wasn't there in clear sight before because you were not able to recognize it. But here you can recognize it. And so you start to notice, oh yeah, there are choices, there are options, there's a play that's available. So start to play with that and notice when you exhale. So at that point of transition between exhalation and inhalation, are you squeezing? Is there tension? What is your face doing? Is your face soft or is your face tense? Is your chest tense or is your chest soft? And if it's squeezed, then just see what happens when you don't squeeze. Maybe that means you don't exhale as much, or maybe it means you exhale in a different way. But here, you're not trying to figure it out in advance. You're just playing. There's a dance, there's a rhythm. And you're just noticing the cues. You're noticing, oh yes, here it's a little bit excessive. Here it's a little bit tense. Here's a little bit of a strain. So you soften, you release, you do less. Trust in the intelligence of nature that's within you, that's doing the breath for you. So then you start to notice also, where is the breath in the body? Where do you feel it? So this is another variable. So part of the sense of satisfaction is that it moves through the whole body. Now that might seem strange if you're just thinking about the air, but here we're not talking about the air, we're talking about the movement. So you can feel that movement. It's subtle maybe in some parts of the body, but you can feel it. You can feel that movement. So just feel into that and feel, where is it restricted? And wherever it's restricted, wherever you don't feel the satisfaction of it, then just see that you can let that go a little bit. And whatever you can't let go, you just surrender and accept that. So now we can play a little bit more. In order to be able to feel the breath in a sense, we can also use vibration by humming on the exhalation. So you can try that out. So you just normal inhalation with awareness, just as we've been doing. So nothing changes there. But then on the exhalation, hum and see, can you feel that hum through the whole body? Where do you not feel the hum? And then see, how do you allow yourself to open to feeling that vibration? So just do that several times. I find that really lovely. Maybe it's a little bit strange, but it's quite wonderful. So you start to notice, it really highlights the subtleties of where there's a restriction or a tension or holding that's unnecessary. So I noticed, for example, as I do that, I was holding tension in the back of my head, and so it wasn't vibrating there. But when I soften there, the vibration travels through that area. And I can feel it all the way down to my fingertips and my toes. So just do that several times and see what that's like. and always just within your comfort. So don't try to force a longer hum than is comfortable. If you're gasping for air afterward, that means you were doing too much. So just do a little less. Okay, so now let's start to explore adding a little bit of other movement along with this primal movement of the breath. So the idea here is that we want to maintain awareness of the breath. And now it's like that breath is the basic rhythm of the music of the dance. And then we start to add other layers of rhythm, of movement to that, but it's synchronized so that we have this music, this dance that starts to unfold. So here we're wanting to maintain, it's really important that we maintain awareness of the breath. So if you lose awareness of the breath, it just means that you're doing too much with the other movement. So just do less with the other movement. So let's start with something hopefully fairly simple, which will just move the eyes, and we'll coordinate the movement of the eyes with the breath. Now I'll suggest one way to do that to start, and we'll all do that. And then after that, I'll invite you to also explore doing it in other ways that will be, improvisational, spontaneous to you. But to start, we'll practice moving the eyes only on the exhalation. So on the inhalation, we'll hold the eyes in a relaxed stillness. On the exhalation, we'll move the eyes. So we'll move the eyes first on the exhalation to the right. Okay, so and then you keep the eyes over there for the inhalation, and then move them to center on the exhalation. And then we'll go to the left on the next exhalation. And then on the inhalation, keep the eyes over there. And then to center on the exhalation. So just do that one more time to both sides, coordinating the breath and the movement of the eyes. And it seems very simple maybe, but then you'll also notice there's a lot going on. So just notice that you can also inhibit the movement of the rest of the body. So maybe the head will want to go with the eyes, which is a good thing. But here we're also just relaxing or inhibiting that tendency and just moving the eyes. See that you can also relax the tongue, because the tongue tends to want to go with the eyes as well. And then once you've completed that, then we'll just pause for a moment and just close the eyes and let the eyes relax into the head. So really let them kind of get a sense that the eyes are kind of sinking back into the skull, Let the whole face relax. And just take a moment to notice whatever is happening. So that could be anything, whatever thoughts, feelings, sensations, maybe no thoughts, feelings, or sensations, anything that may be occurring or not occurring, just be aware and just allow. So even if there's sometimes these simple things can provoke intensity, and we want to just pause to make space for that and allow that intensity, if that's here or whatever may be here, because it really develops this skill of non-judgmental awareness so that we can be non-compulsive just for a moment and allow the subtler movements to flow so that we can really come to discover that underlying stillness, that underlying rest. Okay, and now you can explore for a few rounds, moving the eyes in whatever way you would like, so long as you can remain aware of the breath throughout. So relaxed, rhythmic, natural breath, and move the eyes. So a little tip is you're going to probably find you want to let the breath be the rhythm that you move to, so that you allow the movement of the eyes to be coordinated with the breath rather than trying to do some other polyrhythmic thing. So just explore that for a few breaths. I was just experimenting with moving the eyes to the tip of the nose. I mean, not literally, but the focus, which is an interesting one. So anybody who wants to try that might find that interesting. Okay, and now let's combine the movement of the eyes and the head with the breath. So now we're going to use the eyes to lead the movement of the head, but it will be coordinated with the breath. So we'll do the same basic coordination and movement that we just did together, which is to say that we'll move on the exhalation, and the eyes will move first to the right on the exhalation, and the head will follow. Then we'll keep everything to the right for the inhalation. For the exhalation, we'll move everything back to center with the eyes leading, the head following. And then we'll go to the left and then to center. So we'll just do that together. Well, at your own pace, but we'll do that now. So on inhalation, we're at center, and then exhalation, we'll turn the eyes and head to the right. And then when you next come back to center, just rest there for a moment again and just allow that all to integrate as we did a moment ago. So you're just non-judgmentally witnessing whatever is happening, whatever your inner experience is, the feelings, sensations, thoughts, images, anything that may be there. And then also noticing the underlying stillness that may be more accessible now. And then when you're ready, we'll do another step in this progression, which is that we will, my cat is in here again, we will we'll include touch. So if it's comfortable for you, then you can bring your right hand up to the side of the left side of the neck, and you can turn the head a little bit to the right, and then tip the left ear down toward the shoulder a little bit, and you'll feel that there's this muscle or some tissue there that kind of, when you make that, when you turn the head to the right, then you'll feel it there kind of, well, it contracts a little bit, so you can feel it. It comes down from the back of the skull to around to the front at the, where it connects to the breastbone. So you can feel that, and just gently, if it's comfortable for you, just very gently grip that with your fingers. It's not so that it strains anything. And then come back to upright. So you just have a very, very gentle grip there of that tissue. And we're going to do the same thing now. Just keep maintaining that gentle grip throughout. Now you might, as we turn the head, you may feel that the grip slips. And if that happens, don't worry about it. So we're going to do the same movement, but now just gently maintaining this gentle grip here. So that is, on the exhalation, we turn the eyes and the head to the right, and then, yeah, I hope you understand the basic progression of that now, in sequence with in coordination with the breath. So let's do that now. And really allow this tissue under your hand to release as you're doing this movement. And then once you've done that, we'll switch to the other side. So at your own pace, but when you're ready, we'll do the same, where you bring your left hand to the right side of the neck. And in order to find, this is the sternocleidomastoid, what you're going to do is you're going to turn the head to the left and then bring the right ear down toward the right shoulder a little bit. It will make this pop out a little bit so you can feel it, and then gently grip it. And then you can bring the head back to upright once you've got that grip. My cat is knocking things down. And then, as long as that's comfortable for you, you maintain that gentle grip, and then we'll just do the same sequence of movement coordinated with the breath. And then when you're done with that, just let the hand come to rest. And then we'll just, again, allow this to integrate. And that means you just watch inwardly, non-judgmentally, just allowing and opening to whatever the experience is. So today, we've actually done quite a lot. Now, it might not seem like a lot, or maybe it does seem like a lot, but this basic little sequence that we've done has produced a tremendous amount of change in the nervous system. We've done some of these basic pieces. The most important part is the awareness, non-judgmental awareness. But within that, we've also brought a surrender to a natural breath, which is very powerful for transforming the nervous system. We brought contralateral movement, which is very powerful for producing change in the nervous system. We did coordinated movements, also very powerful. And then here with this last bit where we brought touch specifically to the sternocleidomastoid, where we tend to hold a lot, connects into the chest and into the ear and jaw. So can release a lot of stored stuff. So even though it's very gentle and it may not seem like a lot, it can produce a lot of change, and that change will continue. So what's important is that over the next little while, certainly for the next, let's say 24 hours, you want to just continue to check in by just allowing for an integration. So you just pause and just slow down and non-judgmentally witness whatever your experience is. So many things may come to your awareness. You may become aware of thoughts, feelings, sensations. You may interpret those as uncomfortable. Anything is possible, but whatever you experience, just trust and know that it's part of the process of this change. It's a release of a lot of this conditioning in the nervous system. So just be very gentle and remember that the most important thing is that you just see it non-judgmentally. And in that, it's the change is propagating throughout the entire system. Sometimes it can be that afterward, after these simple kinds of movements, that there can be a provocation, may help you to uncover or become more aware of sensations or feelings or experiences that have been stored beneath the surface, so to speak. And so it's just very important that you remember that everything that happens is part of that healing process. So don't freak out about anything, and having an attitude of gratitude. I wasn't trying for that, but having an attitude of gratitude will be very helpful, even and especially if you notice a tendency toward negative interpretation or catastrophic interpretation of your experience. That's extraordinarily powerful when you can maintain a non-judgmental witnessing of that experience when there's a habitual catastrophizing going on. If you notice that you become aware of some experience and you tend toward this very negative thinking, negative interpretation. Oh, this is the end of the world, or oh, I can't believe this is happening, or I can't believe that this pain is occurring, or poor me, or whatever the case may be. Just see that non-judgmentally and know that it's part of that conditioning easing out of the system. And you'll see that usually within 24 hours, there will be a very, very significant shift. So thank you for joining me. Be very gentle with yourselves, be kind to yourselves, take good care of yourselves. Rest if you need to rest. And be gentle. It's just very important to, again, notice those tendencies of violence that are conditioned into the system and don't take them personally. Just allow them to release and be grateful for that. So thank you. I appreciate you. Blessings to you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.